This is the early edition, a curated weekday guide to major news and developments over the past 24 hours. Curated by Lizzie Jennings and read by an automated voice. Published April 8, 2026 on Just Security, an essential resource for those shaping a just and secure world. Here's today's news. Iran war. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, President Trump said yesterday morning. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. At 6:32 p.m. ET, Trump lifted this threat, saying that an intervention by the Pakistani government had led to a 2-week ceasefire between the United States, Israel, and Iran. Trump added, "We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate." Shortly after, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said in a statement that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. A regional official said today that the ceasefire plan includes allowing Iran and Oman to charge fees on ships transiting through the strait. David E. Sanger reports for The New York Times. AP News reports. Jacob Wendler and Paul McCleary report for Politico. Two sources told Axios that a first round of negotiations between the United States and Iran on an agreement to end the war is planned for Friday in Islamabad. Barak Ravid and Mark Caputo report. Israel said today that it supports the suspension of attacks against Iran for 2 weeks, but added that the deal does not extend to Lebanon. Israeli strikes in Lebanon continued today. 3 Lebanese sources told Reuters that Hezbollah halted fire on northern Israel and on Israeli troops in Lebanon early this morning as part of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. Hezbollah is likely to issue a statement outlining its formal position on the ceasefire and on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's position that Lebanon is not included, the sources added. Ewan Ward and Francesco Regalado report for The New York Times, Reuters reports. U.S. forces in the Middle East and officials in the Pentagon had no idea what was going to happen, a defense official said, adding that preparations for a massive bombing campaign on Iranian infrastructure continued right up until Trump announced the ceasefire. For those involved in negotiations, sources said there was a general understanding by around noon ET yesterday that the parties were converging on a 2-week ceasefire. 2 Iranian sources said the breakthrough occurred when Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei gave negotiators his blessing to cut a deal. Such was the confusion around Trump's thinking that multiple people who had spoken to him early yesterday evening still believed he would reject the ceasefire offer. Barak Ravid, Dave Lawler, and Mark Caputo report for Axios. The United States, Israel, and Iran accelerated strikes yesterday ahead of Trump's deadline. Vice President J.D. Vance said yesterday that strikes on Iran's Harg Island overnight did not include oil infrastructure, adding that there had been no change in U.S. strategy. The president's deadline has been followed by us and everybody else, he said. And he said very clearly, we're not going to strike energy and infrastructure targets until the Iranians either make a proposal we can get behind or don't make a proposal. Gregory Svirnovsky reports for Politico. Max Barak reports for The New York Times. U.S. journalist Shelley Kittleson, who was kidnapped in Iraq by Iran-backed Kataib Hezbollah last week, has been released, the State Department said yesterday. Jacob Wendler and Daniela Cheslow report for Politico. Iranian hackers are exploiting cyber vulnerabilities in key software systems at U.S. water and energy providers, according to a new advisory released by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency yesterday. Programmable logic controllers developed by software manufacturer Rockwell Automation Allen Bradley are actively being exploited, and PLCs from other companies are potentially being targeted as well, the advisory said. Dana Nickel and Maggie Miller report for Politico. The FBI warned U.S. state and local law enforcement of an elevated threat posed by Iran's government to targets in the United States, including military and government personnel, Jewish and Israeli institutions, and Iranian dissidents in the United States, in a report dated March 20th. The FBI and National Counterterrorism Center had not identified broad threats to the American public, the report said. Christina Cook and Ted Hessen report for Reuters. Iran war, political response. China and Russia vetoed a Bahrain-led resolution at the UN yesterday aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Bahrain, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Denmark, France, Greece, Latvia, Liberia, Panama, Somalia, the United Kingdom, and the United States voted in favor of the resolution, Sophie Brams reports for The Hill. About 15 countries are currently mobilized and are participating in the planning to enable the implementation of this strictly defensive mission to facilitate the resumption of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. French President Emmanuel Macron said this morning in a meeting with French defense advisors. Macron also welcomed the ceasefire between Iran and the United States, but called for Lebanon to be included in the deal. More than 70 U.S. Democratic lawmakers yesterday called for Trump to be removed from office and questioned his mental fitness for the presidency after he threatened to destroy a whole civilization in Iran. Senator Jack Reed, Democrat, Rhode Island, said that Trump's threat was comparable to genocide and a criminal act, adding that Trump seems to have lost control and become as fanatical as the regime leaders in Tehran. Megan Monero and Michael Gold report for the New York Times. More than 24 Senate Democrats yesterday demanded that the Armed Services Committee open its own bipartisan investigation into the February 28th strike on an Iranian girls' elementary school that killed at least 175 people. Megan Monero reports for the New York Times. Russia-Ukraine war. Cameroon said on Monday that Russia confirmed the deaths of 16 Cameroonian soldiers in Ukraine, according to a memo addressed to the Russian embassy in Cameroon. Nalova Akua reports for AP News. Other global developments. North Korea fired multiple ballistic missiles today, adding to a launch a day earlier, according to South Korea's military. The incidents mark North Korea's 4th, 5th, and 6th ballistic missile launches this year, following 2 launches in January and a 3rd in March. South Korea typically announces North Korean ballistic missile launches promptly, as such tests violate UN Security Council resolutions against the North's missile program. Hugh Sok-shim reports for Reuters. The International Organization for Migration said yesterday that more than 80 migrants are missing after a boat that departed from Libya on Sunday capsized in the central Mediterranean. Of the estimated 120 people on board, 32 were rescued by a merchant vessel and a tugboat. Fatma Khalid reports for AP News. Tech developments. Anthropic said yesterday that its new AI model, Claude Mythos Preview, is so powerful at finding and exploiting software vulnerabilities that it could pose major cybersecurity risks, and so will not be released publicly. Instead, access is being restricted to around 40 tech and cybersecurity companies, including Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, which will use it to detect and fix security vulnerabilities in software programs. Kevin Roos reports for the New York Times. U.S. Foreign Affairs. Trump and Vance yesterday offered their support for Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban at a rally 5 days before the election. Vance cheered Orban on in person, while Trump offered his praise by telephone to a stadium in Budapest packed with supporters of Hungary's Fidesz party. "I love Hungary, and I love Viktor. I'm telling you, he's a fantastic man," Trump said by phone. Andrew Higgins and Lily Rutai report for the New York Times. U.S. immigration developments. ICE officers yesterday shot and injured a man named Carlos Ivan Mendoza in Northern California. The Department of Homeland Security said ICE fired defensive shots at Mendoza after he weaponized his vehicle during a targeted vehicle stop. DHS also said that Mendoza has a history of gang involvement and was wanted for questioning in El Salvador about a murder. Governor Gavin Newsom, DCA, said he had been briefed on the incident and expected federal authorities to cooperate with state and local officials during the investigation. Alyssa Luckpat reports for The Wall Street Journal. ICE arrested more than 800 people following tips shared by Transportation Security Administration officials from the beginning of Trump's presidency to February 2026, according to internal ICE data reviewed by Reuters. Ted Hesson and Christina Cook report. U.S. domestic developments. The Justice Department has assigned its Civil Rights Division, led by Harmeet Dillon, to investigate Cassidy Hutchinson, a former White House aide, over alleged lying to Congress about events on January 6, 2021. Alan Fire and Michael S. Schmidt report for the New York Times. Bill Gates is scheduled to appear before the House Oversight Committee for a transcribed interview about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein on June 10th. Cheyenne M. Daniels and Haley Fuchs report for Politico. Trump administration actions. Nobody has any idea why the Attorney General is no longer the Attorney General, except for President Trump, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche told reporters yesterday. Blanche said he was not taking any particular lesson from Pam Bondi's removal, nor planning any course correction for the DOJ. I grow tired of people in the media saying why President Trump did or did not do something, because President Trump's the only one that knows that, Blanche added. Josh Gerstein reports for Politico. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll told the Washington Post yesterday that he has no plans to resign from his role at the Pentagon, after a series of internal clashes with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Hegseth and Driscoll have disagreed on several issues, including Hegseth's moves to block the promotions of several Army officers, officials said, adding that tensions between the two date back at least a year. Dan Lamothe reports. Thank you for listening to Just Security's early edition today, April 8, 2026. If you enjoy listening, Just Security's analytic articles are also available in audio form on the justsecurity.org website. To stay up to date on Just Security's analysis of law, policy, and current events, go to justsecurity.org. Subscribe to Just Security on Substack and follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads.